Hey people, welcome back to the channel. This is a story in which Madara is Naruto's grandfather. He implanted his and Hashirama's cells into Naruto and trained him, which made him extremely strong. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment if you want to suggest fanfic. Check the description for credits and support the creator of the story. So let us begin. Chapter 17. The world was a beautiful place to live in. He enjoyed doing what he loved and wanted to do. He liked it when everything worked out the way he wanted. When they did not, he would pull all his efforts into making sure that they went his way. Many might say that they hated the world for what it had become. Truly, the shinobi world had become evil, but he did not care. He was fine with it, as long as the evil did not disturb him. If the evil were to stand in his way, he would have a problem with it. He would not mind doing anything to wipe it away. But because it did not stand in the way of his goals, he did not care for it. He simply chose to ignore it and continue with his own life. His life and his goals were what mattered the most to him. Konoha was truly peaceful when one looked it over from the Hokage monument. During his younger days, the spot had been his favorite. It gave him a chance to enjoy some peace. Despite what others believed, he sometimes wished for quietness and some peace. He did not always have to enjoy the music of a dance. Sometimes it was good to relax. These days it was more of a must for him to relax as much as he could. Doing too much chakra-related work was not going to be benefiting to his health. His body was not operating the way he wanted. It had some unwanted guests that were trying to destroy it. He would survive though. What he felt was nothing permanent. Sooner, rather than later, he would forget about his unwelcome guests. For now, he had to mind his steps. He would avoid battle as much as he could, to preserve the health of his body. Outside, it may look perfectly well, but it was anything but that. He hated not being in control of certain things concerning his life. It did not dwell with him, especially when there was little he could do to change things. He knew though, that it would not remain as it was. Soon, he would awaken and his body would be at its full capabilities. Naruto looked at the streets of Konoha calmly. Soon, he thought, he would be leading this village to greatness. First, he had to get rid of a few germs that were trying to stand in his way. Konoha was no threat to him. Not even the elders, en route they were mere children that he had dance around for his amusement. In all her greatness, Konoha would be for him to lead. The Uchiha will rise again to power. Perhaps even Karen would attempt to restore the Uzumaki. He would like it if she did. However, the girl did not seem to be serious enough to think about restoring the Uzumaki clan. Well, at least she would have Fuinjutsu by her side to show that she was indeed an Uzumaki. His own Fuinjutsu needed more work. He needed to work on complex things. He had allowed it to remain the way it was though. Madara had introduced him to the art before he even fully matured his Sharingan. How long has that been? Had he given it more time, he would have been a master of the art now. What was done, he just had to make time. Naruto looked at his right as he sensed a familiar chakra signature coming towards him. Kakashi, he thought. He really should have just told the man he was in no need of friends or anything. The view is quite lovely from here, the one-eyed Junin started things of slowly. He was forgetting, Naruto was not the one to beat around the bush. If Naruto remembered correctly, a moment like this had occurred before. Back then, he had to tell the Junin to get to the point. Although he refused to comment, he had to agree that the view was indeed lovely. But he did not come here for the nice view. He had no need for such things. He simply came here because it secluded him from everyone else. Kakashi sighed and sat down beside Naruto. He put his book away. You know, you don't make things easy for anyone, the famed Junin stated looking down at his home. I do not like easy things. And things are a bit more interesting when they are difficult, Naruto said. So you would make things difficult for the sake of having a brain teaser. Don't you like a brain teaser, every now and then? Kakashi merely shrugged. Sometimes, he said. What do you want? Naruto asked suddenly. He always had to do this, as people who spoke to him often try to water things before getting to the point. Kakashi sighed again. He had been expecting Naruto to say something like that. He did wish the blonde could be a little nice when asking the question though. Anyone would interpret it as if he was not wanted. When we were still in Team 7, I tried to befriend you. Each time I tried, You shot me down, Kakashi said, recalling his failed attempts to getting close to the blonde. I wondered what wrong I had done. I wondered if you simply just did not like my guts. Naruto shook his head inwardly. He really should not be talking about such petty things. There were far more important things he could deal with. Even if there was nothing, he would rather enjoy the peace than have a conversation like this. Here he was though, Kakashi was getting him into a conversation he did not like. He closed his eyes before opening them again. I should deal with this now, he thought. I did not like to have people close to me, Naruto stated. Did not. Still don't. Kakashi felt like his hopes were crushed by those words. But he did not let them put him down. You know, before I came here I asked myself this question, why did I want to make it up to you? You don't acknowledge sensei as your father, you don't even seem to like having friends, most importantly you don't seem to care about most things that have to do with emotions. Kakashi turned his head into the clear skies before looking back at the village. The only reason I wanted to be your friend was because you are sensei's son, regardless of how you view it. What is your point, Kakashi? I have always looked for an opportunity to be your friend because I cared for you. Always have and always will. He paused and turned to Naruto. The blonde, though, was not looking at him. He smiled sadly. I also wanted to apologize for not doing much to be there for you when I had the chance. You went through so much in your childhood. I failed to protect you, even though when your mother was still carrying you, I protected you and her. However, once you were born, I failed to continue doing that. Listen, Naruto started calmly. I will never repeat this again. I would not even care enough to have this conversation with you. I dislike talking about petty things from the past. Nevertheless, because you tried, I will say this once. What do you think I think when I see Minato's face? Kakashi thought for a moment, the bastard who caused me misery. I think nothing. I merely look away. It is not worth my time to think much of a dead man, Naruto stated. All Kakashi could do was to nod. What do you think comes to my mind when I see the villagers smiling at me? Kakashi shook his head. He really did not know. Nobody knew for sure how Naruto felt about the villagers for what they did to him. He already hated his father for making him a Jinchuriki. Why could stop him for hating the very people who made his life a misery? Nuisances. Annoying, they are fools, Naruto stated. Kakashi looked at him carefully. So you have not forgiven them for what they did. Forgive. I do not know how to use such a word. They are mere nuisances to me, insects that I could crush any time I want. Therefore, I do not bother with them. Ironic, huh? He was going to someday lead the very same people. This would be a consequence of him being Hokage. What do you think comes to my mind when I see Jiraiya? Again, Kakashi shook his head. But he not did think that Naruto held Jiraiya somewhere in his heart, if their interactions revealed anything. Nothing. I care not for the man. Kakashi did not find that hard to believe. He believed the blonde in all honesty did not care for Jiraiya. He had showed not to care not even the slightest about certain things others would find worth caring for. There are many people I should watch die and not care, even the slightest. Even the villagers of this village could be killed in front of me, and I would never feel the need to get back at the one who killed them. But you are not one of them. Kakashi sighed in relief and smiled. You know, I thought for a second that, Kakashi, Naruto cut off the copy ninja. I believe saying, you are not one of them, has solved everything and banished some thoughts that might have been finding room in your head. Kakashi only smiled. You should lighten up sometimes, Naruto, he said, standing up. Thanks for the time, I will see you around. The Junin was about to leave when Naruto spoke again. I would appreciate it if you did not just drop by to see me without anything of importance to say. Don't come to me to chat or relax with me, only come when you have something important, that is how it read. Naruto. And here I thought you and I were going to be good friends, Kakashi said, surprisingly calm about the whole thing. Naruto gave the Junin a blank stare. Stay away, Kakashi. I have no need for trivial things as friendship. I have far more important things to do. Now go away, you have already disturbed much of my peace. Kakashi did not need to be told twice. He disappeared away from the Hokage monument. Naruto sighed. He could never truly give 100% of his efforts to his objectives with people trying to invade his personal space. If he could not focus completely, then the results could come back imperfect, that would surely no satisfy him. He would be very much displeased. That was interesting, Zetsu stated as a part of him appearing beside Naruto. Naruto looked at Zetsu at the corner of his eyes. You were here all along. Did you not sense Nei? Zetsu questioned after nodding. You know it is impossible to sense you. I have always thought you could sense me because each time I appear you always look at my position like you knew I was going to show up. He did think that Naruto could sense him. No one could sense him. But Madara could sense him, as well as speak with him telepathically. Perhaps it was because he was connected to him. No, I cannot do that. I can however feel you when a small part of your body materializes from the Earth's surface. Zetsu nodded. How are you holding up? Naruto held out his hand. So far, I am well. Nothing seems to be troubling me much. But I need something far stronger, something that can knock out anyone else. Where are you going to find it? Orochimaru's scrolls, Naruto said. I am sure that if you search, you can get something that will help us make a strong drug. Zetsu nodded. Have you found out everything that is wrong? No, I will have to do a thorough analysis of my blood sample and a full body scan. Zetsu nodded. It was best if they knew what they were dealing with. I left your medicine in your room, he said that was good. If that thing was still alive, I would make it suffer for all eternity. This condition is unacceptable, to depend on medicine. Oh, his pride was hurt. He had been brought down to the ground. He needed medicine to use his power. He could not even activate his Sharingan without taking his medicine. How Zetsu wished the snake was still alive. It would definitely have been a show for him to watch what Naruto would do to him. If he had the power, he would bring the snake back to life. Well, you did not always get what you want. Have you prepared everything for the Edo Tensei? No, but the clones should have gathered everything before tomorrow. Good, Naruto said. Everything else is in motion now. All the players are making their movements. The result should be exciting and we will surely have some fun along the way. He managed to smile as he said that. Indeed, Zetsu agreed. There was surely going to be some great battles that would take place. He would be having the front row seat in all the battles. Naruto was right, there was going to be fun and he would surely enjoy it. At the end of the journey, he would have all the memories to review. He was definitely going to record everything he found to be his worth. Later that day the time had finally come for the date. Yugao was quite excited about it, her first date in many years. She had missed going out with a guy to have some fun or just enjoy the guy's company. Her job demanded her to focus much of her time and efforts on it. She never had time to spend on other things. At least now it was better since things had cooled off a bit. There was not much trouble going about the village. She was not expecting Naruto to be excited about the date though. If she expected something like that, she would be in for a disappointment. She knew him enough not to expect some things from him though. Still, she wished he could at least act differently for the night. It was a date. You had to act like you were on a date. It would not feel like a date if he just became his usually quiet self. She did enjoy his company though. She did not think it was odd that she was the one going to pick him up and was the one to have set up the reservations. She could not picture Naruto doing something like that. If he did, then she would not be surprised if Kakashi suddenly says that he dislikes Ika Ika Paradise. Meanwhile Naruto was wearing his usually black attire, without the gloves though. He was sitting comfortably at the kitchen table holding a scroll from Orochimaru's hideouts and a cup of tea right beside him. He was interested in seeing some of the crazy experiments the snake had done. He was also trying to find something that would help him. Sasuke was sitting across the table with a book in hand. They had been sitting for about an hour now, none had said a word to the other. It was odd for Sasuke because since Naruto returned, they had been talking ever since. And that was not even 2 days ago. Naruto did not seem like he would be speaking anytime soon. He seemed like he had a few things on his head. Aren't you going out tonight? Sasuke asked, suddenly breaking the silence in the room. Naruto looked up to Sasuke for a moment before looking back to his scroll. I am, he said, continuing to read the scroll. You are going out like that. Is there a problem? No. No problem, I am just surprised that you would go out wearing something like that. You have to wear something nice when going out on a date, the young Uchiha stated. Naruto merely shrugged. He was not going to change his clothing for a date. If he did that, then he could as well join Jiraiya and Tsunade on one of their drinking nights. Did Tsunade give you the documents you needed? Yes, she did, Sasuke replied with a small smile. She said she will give me files of registered shinobi in the next 3 days, so that I can choose who I want for the military police force. Naruto nodded silently. Did you start making plans for the police force HQ? No, Sasuke answered with a small smile. You can't expect me to do everything in a single day. He could complete all the required work in a single day if he had all the pieces and the time to do it. Did you not have the time? I had it, but I just decided to take a break and look into other things, Sasuke replied with a shrug. Before Naruto could say anything, there was a knock at the door. Sasuke was first to speak. Ah, it looks like your date has arrived, he smirked. Now don't stay late and don't do anything I would not do. He frowned when Naruto did not react to his words. He hit himself, he was acting way too familiar around the blonde. He and Naruto were like partners. He should remind himself often that Naruto did not joke, it was why he did not even bother to comment on his joke. Not even a smile flicked through his impassive expression, not even a twitch of his eyebrows. Naruto simply did a small kaiden jutsu and burned the scroll he was reading, it was not useful to him. He stood up and walked away from Sasuke without any other word. He opened the door and raised a brow at the sight before him. Yugao wore a blue jean shaping her body from waist to right above her ankles. She also wore a dark purple t-shirt that gave a nice view of her sizable bust. Yugao actually thought Naruto would compliment her, judging by the way he was looking at her. But he did not. Shall we? Was all that came from his mouth. She felt dejected. She might not have expected him to do anything different from what he normally did. But come on. A compliment would be nice every now and then. He was a guy, for God's sake. Did not he think like any other guy? She sighed and turned away from the door. Let's walk, she said. Naruto obliged and walked calmly by her side. It would really be a long walk since the Uchiha compound was secluded from Konoha. They were secluded away from the rest of the villagers. He did not mind though. It would prove to be a pleasant experience. He did not dislike Yugao's presence. You know, for once you could compliment someone on their looks. I mean, it is what normal people do, Yugao stated as the two made their way out of the compound. You expect me to say such things? Well, yes. For what purpose? Naruto questioned, looking at the road ahead of them. Their pace was relatively slow. They did not seem to be in a hurry or anything. It is just pleasant to hear when someone tells you that you look wonderful, Yugao said. It just was. Everybody liked being complimented, every woman that is. She was sure that if a very wonderfully looking man complimented Tsunade on her look, the blonde Hokage would surely blush. Then if I simply tell you that your clothing does not suit you, what will you feel? No, so good, I guess, Yugao answered calmly. It depends on who is saying it. If someone like you said I looked good, I would be ecstatic about it. If you said I did not, I will be sad because I know you are being honest. Certainly Naruto was not going to give anyone a fake compliment. He was very honest in a harsh way. But she was kind of used to that. She understood that it was who he was. And she sort of liked him for it. But I don't think that any women would be happy if Jiraiya told her that she was beautiful. The Sannin would definitely cry if he had heard Yugao's words. The reason was obvious. And it was obvious why no woman in her right mind would blush from Jiraiya's compliment. The man was a pervert, something he did not deny and was proud of, and everyone knew that. Don't expect me or other people to say something like that, Naruto said calmly. Know who you are and what you are. Take a compliment as a compliment. Don't let it influence how you think and feel about yourself. Yugao stopped and looked at Naruto for a moment before walking forward to catch up to him. I did not think you could say something like that. Naruto smiled slightly. Mei had said the same thing when he had complimented her on her strength. He took no offense on it though. He was who he was. You are acting normal now, Naruto said suddenly. Huh. You seem confident and don't look uncomfortable close to me despite what the night has brought. Yugao smiled. I was comfortable with being close to you at first and then it happened. Maybe I just did not know what to think of you, that must have made me nervous. Now you know what to think of me. Yes, the purple-haired Anbu said nervously. If she was hoping that Naruto would ask what she thought of him, she did not get that. Naruto did not say another. He did not seem to ponder her words. From there, they continued to walk in comfortable silence. Yugao preferred it that way. She liked the silence, especially if it was with Naruto. She was comfortable and worry-free. Perhaps it was because she felt safe around him and enjoyed his presence. She was not worried about whether Naruto was plotting on how to get under her pants at the end of the night. She did not think that he had any thoughts with himself and a woman. He would not even plot for something like that. If he wanted some, he would say it that way. She liked him for that. Yugao led the way as they made it to the restaurant she had made reservations. Odd, that she was the one who did that. Naruto did not mind though, neither did she. Makai 4 stars restaurant 4 stars. She must have gone her way for the night to go well. Naruto thought. He would not have minded where he ate though. Even if it was under a tree or at the ramen bar, he would not have minded. Name please, a smartly dressed man standing at the door of the restaurant said politely at the two. Azuki Yugao, table for two, Yugao stated looking at the man. He had a name tag of Hachi and looked to be in his early 20s. Hachi looked at his clipboard looking for Yugao's name. He smiled upon finding it. Follow me, madam, sir, he said. Yugao and Naruto followed the young man into the restaurant. It was rather big in the inside and fashionably decorated. Naruto did not bother with such things though. Makai had 3 floors, they went to the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was dimly lit and had a theme of red in its color. They were about 3 to 4 tables that were occupied. Everybody seemed to mind their own business though. Nobody was giving them looks unlike in the 1st floor. Perhaps people in the 3rd floor were a lot more dignified. The restaurant was not that of a shinobi, that much was obvious. Naruto wondered though, most civilian-owned restaurants did not permit shinobi into their business mostly because of their destructive ways. With shinobi, there was bound to be a few broken tables and chairs. The expenses to fixing those was not what an owner was looking for if such things could be avoided. Perhaps Yugao had pulled some strings. They sat down at their table and it was not long before their food was served. You know, most men would be thrilled with being on a date. Especially if they were going out on a date with a beautiful woman, Yugao thought. Naruto looked at Yugao for a moment. She never addressed him as a teenager. She always referred him as a man. Perhaps it was because she did not see a teen in him, but a man. I am not most men, Naruto replied. How are things with you at Anbu? Well, I am thinking of retiring though. Tired of the job already. No, I just want to have more time to myself and do other things for myself. Being Anbu, I never get to do anything personally, Yugao explained with a small smile. Perhaps if she retired, she would spend some time with Naruto. Naruto nodded. So who is that girl living in your house? Yugao asked quietly and politely as she could. She was honestly curious how the girl was related to Naruto. Karen, Naruto gave a short reply. Yugao waited for him to give her more. She is family. Naruto saw Yugao smile at that. She also seemed to lighten up a bit despite her reply to his words. Oh, does it make you happy that Karen is family to me? The blonde Uchiha questioned with a slightly raised brow. Well yes, she was not going to deny it. Besides, it was no point in saying no. Naruto could see through her lie. His eyes were watching her carefully. You thought she was more to me than just family. And that made you sad. Interesting. Yugao swallowed nervously and decided to change the topic. I heard you had fun at the council meeting today. You heard. Yay, the Anbu who were guarding the meeting were talking about it at HQ. They said it was quite a show, she said smiling. She really wished she had been assigned to stand watch while the meeting took place. Naruto smiled slightly, it was amusing. Yugao let loose of a soft giggle, so you do admit that you were messing with the elders for your amusement. Perhaps, will you take me with you next time? I want to see the elders dance to your music, she said it like she was begging. I might, Naruto replied, his impassive expression returning. The rest of the night went smoothly. Yugao enjoyed herself. She might not have been able to make Naruto laugh, but she did manage to get him to smile a few times. It was not the ideal date that women always liked, but she had no complaints over hers with Naruto. They spent about 3 hours at the restaurant talking. Yugao got a better understanding of how Naruto viewed life. She had to say, it was unique. She was also surprised by the fact that his views did not puzzle her, she felt like she expected him to be that way. Naruto had decided to call it a night. Those were not his words exactly. This was a pleasant experience. I find it intriguing that I would find such a thing pleasant. But Yugao had stopped listening at that moment because she knew that whatever was going to come from his mouth, she was not going to like. She got the feeling from the blank expression he had. Yugao led Naruto towards her house. She knew that if she did not, he would have walked away towards the Uchiha compound without so much as a good night. This is my place, Yugao said standing at her door. All of the sudden she became nervous for some reason. Come here, Naruto said. Slowly, Yugao stepped away from her door and stepped towards Naruto who was standing calmly in the passage. Closer, he said. Closer, he said again, until her body was pressed against his. You are not annoying and your presence is tolerable unlike any other women I have come across, Naruto said looking straight at Yugao's eyes. You did not seem to find Mei's presence annoying, that came out of nowhere. Yugao had not thought of it, it just came out. Fortunately, for her, Naruto merely smiled. You are different, he said placing his hand under her chin. Perhaps it is because of you or Anbu. He did not say anything again. He moved his hand from under her chin and placed it on her chest before pushing her away. Then, he was gone. He did not give her a last smile, not even a good night kiss, he did not utter the words good night. After a date a guy should have done at least one of those. Naruto did none, and yet she smiled. Things had gone better than she had expected and she liked Naruto just the way he was. That did not mean she would be sad if he started laughing. The following day the house of the Yondaime Hokage. The house was modest in terms of size and looks on the outside. But in the inside it was quite nice. But not enough for Naruto to leave the Uchiha compound and come to stay at the house. It was safe and secure. Although he would never tell Minato, the seals used on the house to protect it were very much complex and nothing short of the work of a genius. He could find more use for the house though. First, he had to look into it and try to find useful things that would be beneficial to him. He might not like Minato but he would not forbid himself from using his things if he found them useful. Karen was right beside him as they undid the security seals, he just need to draw out his blood to deactivate the barrier that would not allow anyone to enter. She was quiet, not saying much as they entered the house. She only commented when she saw the mess the house was. It was not that things were out of order in the house. No, everything was in place. It was just that there was a thick dust covering all the furniture within the house and spider webs everywhere. Wow, nobody has been home for a long time, Karen exclaimed looking around the house. It has been almost 17 years now since the house was last used. I doubt that Jiraiya has stepped inside since Minato died. And the Sandaime might have had better things to do, Naruto said with a shrug. Could not they even think of taking care of the house of their greatest hero? Karen questioned. She thought that Konoha would undoubtedly take care of the house of their former Hokage despite the man being dead. He was great when he was alive. It is no use to take care of his things while he is dead. Someone should just find use for them. In this case I will find use for his things, Naruto replied walking around the house with Karen closely behind him. He was looking for the library in the house. He was positive that it was built inside the house. Father issues, Karen mumbled to herself. Lucky for her, Naruto did not hear her. She suddenly squeaked as Spider jumped on her. Naruto turned around and looked at her with a blank stare. You are afraid of spiders, he said stating the fact. They are creepy and give me nightmares, Karen said with a shiver down her spine. She managed to get the spider off her body on her own after seeing Naruto turn around again. He was not going to help her deal with the spider. You have lived with Orochimaru in his hideouts conducting all kind of weird experiments and yet you are afraid of spiders. He was a snake, literally. That should have been much more creepy than a harmless spider. Orochimaru did all kind of weird things, things that other people would call inhuman. As his other scientist, she had to have witnessed some of the things the snake made. There was also the fact that Orochimaru hideouts were also creepy themselves because of their dark theme. Spiders had to be always present. Even snakes had to be crawling around. Karen decided not to say anything on the matter. Spiders scared her, that was final. There was nothing more to add to that. Why and how, she did not care. The fact of the matter was that they freaked her out. She did not like them. What are you looking for? The library, found it, Naruto said and opened a door he had walked to. He opened it and raised an eyebrow at the condition of the place. Unlike the other rooms, there was not a single spider web in the room. Perhaps a bit of dust, but that was just that. The room was in a lot better condition than the rooms he had seen. Wow, these are a lot of scrolls. I wonder if the owner read them all, Karen stated looking at the shelves holding many scrolls and books. Naruto nodded. I highly doubt that all the scrolls were read, he said and walked towards the shelves. He browsed for a few minutes before he picked up a book. He threw the book at Karen. Fuinjutsu for Beginners, Karen read from the cover page of the book. Go to the kitchen, clean it, there should be water available, after that, read the book. Karen nodded with a sigh. She walked away, carefully as she did, not to attract any spiders. Naruto looked back at the shelves. He had much work to do with the scrolls. He was also looking for specific scrolls, nothing more. He walked towards the desk in the library and opened the drawers. There were a few notes but nothing interesting him. He found a three-pronged kunai marked with the Hashirama seal, it was custom-made. He flicked the kunai with his right hand and held it firmly by its handle before studying it further. It was a kunai used for the Flying Thunder God technique. This very much piqued his interest. The jutsu would be very much useful. He always had places to visit. Without a defined and effective teleportation jutsu, he could not effectively go everywhere he wanted without having to travel long distances. He could not use Zetsu's unique ability to travel through solid ground. Zetsu was much more effective in getting to places faster than he could. It was why he usually sent him to do things that required covering long distances. Even Obito could teleport anywhere he wanted. All that was left was for him to learn space-time ninjutsu. Then things would much more easier for him to deal with. It was indigenous for Minato to create such a jutsu, even he would not have created something like that. Naruto went back to the shelves selecting a few scrolls he wanted. It took him a few hours to get everything he wanted. He never realized how much time he had spent in the library searching for the things he wanted. He was doing so in a slow pace so not to miss anything. He would hate it if he missed something. Well, it would take some miracle for him to miss something though. His eyes were attentive even to the little details. It was hard for them to miss anything. After nearly 4 hours, Naruto found some useful notes, the formula and notes to the Hashirama, and some notes about the Rasengan. It was really interesting when he read that Minato had created the jutsu after observing Bijus do their Bijudama. It was surprising even so that it had taken him years to complete the Rasengan. He had never bothered to learn the jutsu because he was not interested in learning it. But the second part of the jutsu was attracting, very attracting. The Rasengan was an incomplete jutsu. Naruto felt a bit excited about what he would be able to create if he added a chakra nature to the Rasengan. A normal Rasengan was made of pure chakra. Minato wanted to add an affinity but he never got the chance to do it. A small smile crept into Naruto's face as he thought about the possibilities. He walked out of the house and stood outside. He used the back door to do so. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, about 200 clones puffed into existence. He divided them into 2 groups. Each group would work on its own task. He already could manipulate each of his chakra affinity to a higher level than most, especially with the fire element. Group 1 had the task with 50 members would work on understanding the mechanism of the Hashirama. He would make them each day. He expected them to have an understanding of the jutsu within a week. Each clone would be having a copy of the scroll. Group 2 of 150 was to work on learning the Rasengan. He was expecting them to have already mastered the first and second stage of the jutsu before the end of the day. Then they could take about 2 or 3 days to complete the jutsu. After that, he would begin to do what he wanted. Adding an element to the Rasengan. Go train at the Uchiha compound, Naruto said and his clones disappeared. The compound had a lot more space to train than this house. Naruto. He heard Karen's voice speak from behind him. Naruto turned around to look at her. I was wondering what you were doing outside after sensing you move out of the house, she said. Have you finished studying that book? Naruto questioned. No, she said shaking her head. I have read most of the pages, but it will take me a few days to understand everything and be able to practice what I have read. Naruto nodded. He did not expect anything much more from her. Then come at me, huh? She did not understand that at all. Attack me, he said more clearly. Why? I want to see which style will suit you, Naruto said. And I want to see how you fight. Oh, Karen said. So you did not forget about training me. She was kind of hoping that he would have forgotten about the training thing. No, Naruto replied looking at the red-haired calmly. Now attack me. Karen did ran towards Naruto in her best speed. Naruto almost thought of deactivating his Sharingan because he thought she was coming towards him in slow motion. When she came to him, she was trying to hit him like a girl, not a shinobi. It was pathetic. And he let her know that. Forgive me if unlike you I never had any training before. And you have your Sharingan activated. How am I supposed to hit you? Was her reply when he told her that she fighting capabilities were pathetic. It would not have changed anything if my Sharingan was deactivated, Naruto said. But don't worry, I will shape you into a better fighter. That is what I am afraid of, Karen mumbled under her breath. Come on, Naruto said. We will leave your training for some other time. First, you need to understand the basics of Fuinjutsu. Karen followed Naruto into the house. What's next? I activate the security barriers and go back to the Uchiha compound, Naruto replied. So I am free to do anything I want from now on. There was some hope in her voice as she asked. Yes. Karen smiled brightly. Finally, I can visit the hot springs and have some me time, she said happily. I do expect you to have grasped the basics sooner rather than later, Naruto reminded the Uzumaki girl of what he expected from her. Yay, sure, that was a mood killer. Hey Naruto. Naruto waited for Karen to say what she wanted. Can I have more money? I just gave you money 2 days ago. He had given her a sizable sum of money. She could not have spent it all now money did not just fall from the sky. He had no love for it, but knew it was useful. Well, I spent it all. She had bought clothes, lots of clothes. She had also gone out to pay new furniture to bring in a more womanly touch to the apartment Naruto had given her, that had come at a cost. Naruto was not going to ask what she had spent the money on. She had not interest in knowing that. Come with me to the Uchiha compound. I have never been there before, Karen said. The day she came into the village, Naruto had taken her straight to his house. He had brought Sasuke to the apartment that day. She had never seen the raven-haired Uchiha since then. Naruto did say she could trust him, but he seemed not to know everything about Naruto. She too, did not know much about him. Then yesterday, he only walked with her for a bit before leaving her. It was because he was looking for her that he walked with her. He had gone to the apartment and did not find her. He then found her walking within the streets of Konoha. I have never taken you there, Naruto reminded. The two walked quietly towards the Uchiha compound. Naruto did not have a lot in his mind. He was simply pleased with the progression of things. He had not thought that he would get his hands of 4 potentially dangerous jutsus on the day. He had expected to get his hands on the Hiraishin. But he got more than that. There was also a few scrolls that would help him further his skills in Fuinjutsu. Those scrolls, he would study them himself without depending on the clones to do that work for him. He knew that the clones would not hand him back anything less than perfection, but at times, he preferred doing things on his own. A few days later, Iwagakure, Tsuchikage-sama, a Chunin yelled bursting into Onoki's office. What is it? Onoki asked with a hardened look on his face. He may have been old, but he was still strong and he did not permit his subordinates to enter his office in such a way. Yakushi Kabuto has disappeared, the Chunin reported fearfully. He was afraid of what Onoki might do because he was one of the guards assigned to watch Kabuto while he was still unconscious. What? Onoki yelled standing up from his large seat. He could not believe what he had been told. Kabuto was his key to unlocking certain things that he wanted. Kabuto disappeared, Sandaime-sama, the Chunin repeated again to his leader. Onoki raged silently inside his head. This was unacceptable. He could not have it. How did he escape? Wasn't he being watched? We were watching him, but something like a vortex suddenly appeared and sucked him in before we could do anything. Really, there was nothing they could do. The vortex just appeared out of nowhere and sucked their prisoner. They could not stop it from happening. Onoki gave the Chunin a blank stare. Say what? A vortex appeared in the room and sucked Kabuto. We could not do anything to stop it. We don't know where it came from, but we did manage to see a red eye like that of a Sharingan before the vortex disappeared, the Chunin explained. Sharingan. Are you positive about that? Onoki asked, wanting to be sure about it before making any drastic decision. Yes, there is no mistake about it. It was a Sharingan, everybody had seen it. A lone eye appeared in the middle of the vortex as it disappeared. Was there any trace of Kabuto left behind, chakra or scent? No, the Chunin answered, shaking his head. There was nothing left of him. We searched around the holding facilities before I came here. We did not find him anywhere. You searched for him before you reported that he was missing. The Chunin nodded, not trusting his voice to reply. Go away, I will deal with you later for this failure. The Chunin got away hurriedly from the office, leaving Onoki to his thoughts. There were only 3 Uchihas left running loose in the elemental nations. 2 were at Konoha, the other was running loose playing international criminal for wiping out his entire clan. Onoki refused to believe that there was another Uchiha. Another Sharingan user other than the 3 Uchihas left, yes. There was Hitaki Kakashi. But he ruled out Kakashi for being responsible for making such a move. It did not fit the man's character to do something as this. He also ruled out Sasuke. The person had to be connected to be able to know that they had Kabuto. He had kept the knowledge a secret and only a few Anbu and the Chunin guarding him knew of his presence. He trusted the men guarding Kabuto enough to know that they would not have betrayed him. Ruling out Sasuke and Kakashi left Itachi and Naruto. He would not have put it past Itachi to do something like that. He could have been sent by the Akatsuki to abduct Kabuto for their use. Certainly, Itachi was a capable man. His mastery of the Sharingan was legendary, he could not deny. But there was also Naruto. The blonde could have done it to finish off Kabuto after knowing that he had survived his attack. The blonde seemed connected enough to know certain things. He had been able to locate Orochimaru's hideout in the Earth Country while he who has been alive for years was not able to do it. Naruto seemed the most likely to have been the one to do it. He had been responsible for what happened to Orochimaru's hideout. There was also news spreading out that Orochimaru was dead. Putting 2 and 2 together, Onoki could say that Naruto was the one responsible for the Snake Sanin's death. That was likely the case, he had no doubt about that. What could Naruto want though? He did not believe that the hideout could be have cleaned of its possessions by someone else. It had to be Naruto. That left a questions. Did Orochimaru know something about Naruto? Did the snake have something that Naruto wanted? What is it that he wanted? Kabuto was his key to getting some much needed intel. He had no doubt that Kabuto knew of certain secrets from Konoha. He wanted to know them and use them. He wanted the Snake Sanin number 2 to tell him everything he knew about Naruto. But that was not going to happen now. Kabuto was gone and he could not get him back. He had to find new means to get information he wanted. But he was not back to square one because of Kabuto's disappearance. He had something valuable. He now knew that someone with a Sharingan entered his village and abducted Kabuto from his holding. It may not look like much, but it was something. Yo Gramps, the annoying voice of his granddaughter snapped him out of his thoughts. Onoki looked at Kuretsuchi. You are shrinking, old man. What have I told you about thinking too hard? This job is not good for you. You should quit and just let me take over from you. You are still a child, Onoki retorted. Why did he have to deal with this? When am I going to stop being a child to you? Really, to the old man, she was always a child. He did not see a strong woman in her. He only saw a child that still needed to be guided. Onoki did not answer the question. He got to more pressing matters. What do you have for me? Kuretsuchi sighed. The report you wanted about Oto, she said. What did you find? It is being rebuilt into a proper village. This intrigued the Sandaime Tsuchikage very much. By who? A woman named Guren. She was one of Orochimaru's most trusted. She was only second to Kabuto. This was certainly interesting. The village was being rebuilt. Why would the woman rebuild the village instead of trying to find the killer of her master? As far as he knew, Orochimaru's subordinates were loyal to a fault. They would not lie down if someone killed their master. They would die trying to avenge their master. Was it just a coincidence that after Naruto killed Orochimaru, Oto starts to be rebuilt? He refused to believe so. There was no such thing as a coincidence. I have a mission for you, Onoki said to his granddaughter. Let it be something worth my efforts. Go to Oto and find out what is going on there. Your cover mission is to see if you can negotiate something with the villages. Iwa is interested in helping rebuild the village. Kuretsuchi nodded. Onoki smiled to himself. Soon he would have all the pieces he needed. First, his Jinchuriki had to return to the village. Konoha, you have been rather busy over the past days, Sasuke stated looking straight at Naruto. They were at the Uchiha training ground. Naruto was sitting quietly under a tree with a few scrolls, ink and a brush. He had been doing like this over the past days. While he studied Fuinjutsu, his clones were busy with their work. If you want something done, you have to do it yourself, Naruto responded, not even taking his eyes off his scrolls. Don't you get enough of training? Sasuke questioned. Naruto's clones trained 6 to 6. The only time you did not find them was when they had dispelled after running out of chakra. But Naruto would make more clones after some time. And then the clones would get back to work. It was unlike anything he did. Sure, he had some sparring sessions with Kakashi every now and then, but he did not dedicate the whole day into training and nothing else. Naruto even refused to be disturbed while he was busy studying seals. An Anbu once came to the training ground to inform him that Tsunade wanted to speak him. Tell her I am busy, was what Naruto had informed the Anbu. He had not even thought of it before he responded. The Anbu came back again and told Naruto that Tsunade did not care if he was busy or not. He had almost burst out laughing when Naruto simply said, nothing. He just gave the Anbu a blank expression and went back to his work. The Anbu left to report to the Hokage. He came back again after a few minutes and said that Tsunade said there would be severe consequences if he did not report to her. The third time Naruto had already lost his patience with the Anbu. He explained that he could not get the perfect results with the Anbu annoying him. When the Anbu insisted that they go, Naruto became cold. It was scary at how cold he became. Even he who was watching from a distance away felt the coldness touch him. When Naruto's eyes were cold, you really did not want to look at them. They were capable of freezing anyone. Sasuke noticed the annoyed look on Naruto's face. He was far from pleased at being disturbed from his work. Just his eyes were scary, but when he spoke, Sasuke had felt like the death god himself was speaking. The Anbu did not fare any better. He had trembled when Naruto stood and took a few deathly steps towards him. Luckily, for the Anbu, Naruto disappeared in a swirl of scorching black flames. He had not seen the sunshine before. He guessed it was used when he was in a foul mood. Whatever it was that Tsunade wanted from Naruto, was quickly dealt with because it took less than 2 minutes for Naruto to return. What did she want? He had asked the blonde after seeing that he was in a better mood. She wanted to inform me that she had given the title of Sannin since I was strong enough to be one, was the reply she got from Naruto. He got the idea that Naruto was not pleased to be summoned just so she could inform him that, especially when he was busy. He also thought he had told Tsunade just that. Seeing that Naruto was not going to say anything, Sasuke sighed. I got the files for the shinobi I wanted and I have already picked the shinobi I want, he said. Still Naruto did not take his eyes off his scrolls. I was wondering if you could help me with the training program. Naruto stopped writing complex things on the scroll and looked at him. How many? 45, Sasuke replied. That is a lot more than I had anticipated, Naruto said. It does not matter anyway. Go to Karen, tell her you want the scrolls one left her with yesterday. In the scrolls, you will find different training programs, he stated and then went back to his scrolls. Sasuke nodded and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto did not react to that, he simply focused on deciphering the Hashirama formula. He had taken the task away from the clones and decided to do it himself. Adding an affinity to the Rasengan was proving too much of a task than he had thought. He liked challenges though. He allowed his clones to do as much as training as they could. He did not like any interruptions while trying to achieve perfect results. Anything less than perfect from his current activities would be unsatisfactory. He would not stop working his clones until he could say, perfect, at their achievements. He already understood a few things about the Hashirama. He just needed to break down its formula and analyze each piece of the puzzle until he could have a depth view of the workings of the jutsu. Understanding its workings did not do it. He had to be able to recreate it and be able to apply it on solid objects using his chakra. Later that day Naruto was again at the Hokage monument. He had completed the training for the day. If he liked, he would have continued his work in the Hashirama, but he did understand that his mind needed to rest after working so much of complex things all day. Everything needed to be rested after a day of heavy work. If not rested, they would function sluggishly and in the end, nothing satisfactory will be achieved. He had not only seen Yugao once after their date. Not that he was wishing of seeing her more. He liked how things were progressing. The last time he saw her, she had come to him to inform him that she would be going out on a solo mission outside the village. He had simply nodded and said nothing further to her. Something you won't like happened, Zetsu stated as he appeared. It did not look that way by the expression on his face. He was relatively calm. What? Naruto asked quietly. Danzo has moved against Yugao and Karen, Zetsu reported. Now he was spotting something in the form of excitement in his eyes. Danzo did that. Yes, he kidnapped them both. It turned out that the mission Yugao was sent to was nothing but a fuss created by Danzo so he could get her without much people knowing. Naruto was quiet for a moment. I did not think he would do something this stupid, he said standing up. You may want to hurry. He plans to use Shisui's eye on them since they seem to be close to you. So he wants them to be his loyal puppets so they could spy on me, Naruto said looking all but calm. Zetsu knew better. Naruto was not pleased by Danzo's move. When he was annoyed, you could see it. But when infuriated, he was calm as any day. And when infuriated things tended to be exciting for him. It was why he was feeling excited right now. Abducting Karen and Yugao was crossing a line that no man in his right mind should cross. Naruto did not react well when that line is crossed. Things did not end well to those who went over the border. Danzo had done just that, crossed a line that should never be crossed. You don't do what Danzo did to the handful people Naruto cared for and remain the same. I assume you did nothing against the captors because you wanted to see what I would do, Naruto stated looking at Zetsu. The Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was already activated. Zetsu almost grinned when he saw them. He did not deny that it was what he wanted. Let's go, Naruto said. You will retrieve them while I punish Danzo. Aren't you going to take your armor? Danzo would not lie down and say, I was a bad old man, punish me Naruto-sama. The old war hawk was surely going to have his root in all corners. If I wear my armor, I will become excited about punishing that fool. You know what happens when I am excited. You release too much power. And in this case, if you did, you might end up destroying root bases and alert people, Zetsu stated. Considering your condition, something like that would not be good for your health. Yes. But because I am not wearing my armor does not mean that I will not punish that fool severely. Zetsu nodded. I will see you there. He sunk into the ground. He would have to take Naruto's form because Yugao did not know him and he was sure Naruto wanted to keep it that way. He also was going to hurry. So he could see what Naruto was going to do to Danzo. Root base. A trail of corpses followed Naruto's path as he marched towards Danzo's location. The corpses were either being burned by black flames or they had wooded stakes piercing through the chest where the heart was located. He had killed anyone he came across when entering the root base. He was also in no mood to play around. He was simply killing without any other questions being asked or words said to anyone. It was so much different when he entered Orochimaru's hideout in Kusagakur. He did not kill anyone there, but here he was killing each one of them root he came across. He showed no mercy as he did. Another appeared in front of him and charged towards him blindly. Amaterasu, and then he was set ablaze. The unholy screams of pain followed suit. They seemed to be the music that had been playing into Naruto's ears since he entered the base. Wait, Urut stated to his comrades. There were 4 of them. We have to be careful. Danzo-sama said to be careful and that he wanted him alive. How do we do that? Can't you see what he has been doing? Despite the voice being monotone, it was obvious that the person was not very confident. Which itself was odd because they were trained not to show any emotions. Naruto's left eye was bleeding rather heavily due to his overuse of Amaterasu in quick successions. He had not even bothered to wipe out the blood, which made a very disturbing view because his body was also pulsing with a chakra. The scene behind him was also not so pleasant. There were bodies everywhere and Naruto just walked past them without even sparing them a glance. He did not find it disturbing though. He had this look on his face that said nothing about being pleased. The blood dripping from his face and the cold look on his eyes along with the bloody scene behind made something that you only saw in a serial killer movie. Before the root agents could make out their strategies, Naruto stopped walking. He had been walking at a very slow pace. He looked at the blank masked man for a moment before he disappeared. Shit, let's retreat back to. He never got to finish as Naruto appeared before him. He held out his right hand, which transformed into multiple wooded stakes. The man tried running away, but the stakes shot at him from behind and pierced him, allowing his blood to paint the walls. Naruto retrieved his hand and moved closer to the others who were now slowly backing away from him. He disappeared suddenly and appeared in the middle of the root agents. His body produced sharp wooden spikes that sprout out from every part of his body. The spikes pierced through the men's bodies. The blood continued to paint the walls and corpse continued to decorate the dimly lit passages as Naruto stepped closer to Danzo. More nuisances appeared behind him. He allowed them to get close to him. They did not appear to be in need of using jutsus. Perhaps it was because Danzo wanted him alive. Weapons were better at incapacitating him. How foolish! As soon as they got close to him, his body again produced wooded spikes. But this time they seemed to have life in them. They did not just pierce the root ANBUs, they tied themselves on their necks and moved them in front of Naruto. He looked at them for a moment. How pitiful, to foolishly obey all orders even if it was suicide. Before he could do anything to them, they all exploded. The explosion was contained, but dangerous nonetheless. He was close to it, and he was sent flying backwards where he had left a few corpses. He stood up surrounded by an orange rib cage that shielded him from the explosion. The rib cage disappeared. His front was spotting several slight burns. He did not mind them. He continued to move on. Forward. There was one thing on his mind: punish Danzo. After walking for a few minutes, he finally reached the old war hawk. He did not encounter any other root Anbu while on his way. He assumed they had gone back to their master. He did not think of it as troubling though. Whether they were there or not, he would punish Danzo. As soon as he stepped into the large hall that had Danzo's throne, he sensed them. There were about 150 of them in the hall. He walked calmly, not minding them. And then they appeared before him, surrounding him. He looked past them and looked at Danzo. He looked at Danzo's children for a moment. You are in the way, he said calmly. The root Anbu did not respond, but Danzo did. How brave of you to come down here knowing that I have those women in my possession, the old warhawk said calmly. You have impressed me, but you will not go any further than this. If you do so, I will kill those women. Naruto was not worried about their safety. Zetsu never disappointed him, he never did. The time it took him to reach here, Zetsu must have already reached Cell Yugao and Karen were being held. Don't move, Naruto said, his bleeding left eye targeting the space around Danzo. Amaterasu, he said. A ring of black flames was formed around Danzo's throne. The flames surrounded the throne, burning slightly on the ground. Naruto held a single hand seal and the flames burst upwards, creating a dome around Danzo, a dome of black flames. Danzo was trapped in a prison formed by the impenetrate back flames. The flames had formed bars that formed the dome, leaving a viewing space. The old war hawk was calm as ever. Shadow, he called. Hi, Danzo-sama, the root Anbu responded to his master's call. Go get them. Danzo stated. Don't bother. Another, Naruto, said, coming from another entrance into the hall. I have already secured them. Danzo cursed, but he was not just going to believe it. A root Anbu appeared beside Danzo's prison. Sir, they are not in their holding cell, the man reported. Before Danzo could master any reply, Naruto spoke. Danzo, do not even attempt to unseal your right hand, he said, knowing that as of now it was his only option. If you try to do so, that barrier will collapse on you. He did not have to tell Danzo what would happen if a barrier made of Amaterasu collapsed on him. Danzo cursed but stayed calm. Should we try to free you out, Danzo-sama? Or should we take care of him? Take care of him, there is nothing you can do against this kind of barrier. I no longer care if he is alive or dead, but make sure the Sharingan is not damaged. Hi Danzo-sama. Naruto knew he was going to have to use more of his chakra than he had already. Root were a bit more skilled than the regular Anbu. They were also fearless. He took out a small bottle from the pocket of his pants and drank half of what was inside of it. After that, he pocketed the small bottle. He needed to strengthen himself. He was not going to use the full capabilities of his Susanoo or chakra. It would be dangerous to his health if he did that. He had to use much of his Mokudan. Naruto grinned in a very sick way as he watched Naruto prepare himself. This is going to be fun, he thought. And indeed it was pleasant to watch. It had taken much more time than he had thought it would, but he had no complaints. How could he complain if he was given a front row seat to watch Naruto massacre Root Anbu? His opponents this time were much more disciplined and coordinated. And Naruto was not using any high-powered jutsu, except for Amaterasu. But it did not matter how disciplined and coordinated their attacks were. When Naruto was in the mood to punish someone, he was a lot more focused and concentrated. You could say it was when he fought at his best without enjoying the fight. There was a lot of blood around the hall, given the way Naruto was fighting. He was not turning anything to ash in seconds. He was mercilessly killing, mostly with Mokuton. Susanoo was only used to defend against attacks he could not dodge. When the bloody affair was completed, Naruto smiled in satisfaction. It was worth it. Naruto turned towards Danzo, who was still sitting on his throne with a calm expression. There was nothing he could do. He was trapped inside a barrier made of black flames that could not be extinguished. Naruto Zetsu looked at the blonde carefully. Despite his overuse of Amaterasu, his eye should not be bleeding the way it was. He would have been surprised if Naruto had not noticed it yet. The barrier keeping Danzo in his place suddenly disappeared and Naruto appeared behind him. He was soon lifted into the air by roots that strangled him. Danzo looked forward at Naruto. The blonde was taking giant steps towards him with an orange rib cage surrounding him. It seemed darker than usual. Perhaps it was the wave of black flames that seemed to be following him slowly from behind that gave it a dark look. Or maybe it was the huge cold and lifeless Mangekyou eyes that seemed to be riding on top of the wave of black flames. All in all, it gave a frightening view as Danzo looked at it. He was even more surprised when he felt his heartbeat rate increased in speed. He did not remember the last time he felt fear. Shimura, Naruto said as he finally reached him. He was holding a sword with his right hand. He assumed it was taken from one of his root. The tone Naruto used was cutting deep into his very soul. I cannot believe that I find myself in this position forced by a mere boy, the old warhawk said, trying to shake off the roots strangling him. However, he realized that when he struggled, they sucked his chakra. So he stopped trying to struggle. The roots were tight and felt strong, he could not escape them. Danzo looked clearly into Naruto's eyes. There was a beast that caged within a cage, a beast that should not be let out to play no matter what. You thought you could take them and use Shisui's eye, right? You could have done that tonight and returned them early morning before I could realize this. You were not going to hurt them, just manipulate them against their will. He was still calm as they came when he spoke. Danzo kept a straight face after Naruto had spoken. He was not going to answer to a boy. What you have done warrants death, but for someone like you, death does not do it, Naruto said. What is it that you love the most, Danzo? Power, Konoha, yourself. Danzo remained quiet. Konoha and power it is, that was certain. There was nothing that Danzo loved more than Konoha and power. He loved the village in his own unique way. For your punishment, Danzo, I will take away all your power, and leave you with nothing. And Konoha will never be yours. Ironic, he was going to be killed by a blade of one of his root shinobi he had trained to be loyal to him to a fault. I will take your Sharingans, Naruto said. This time he got a response from Danzo. Do you think you can get away with this? The elder asked. He had already lost his root, he was not going to lose his Sharingans. They were what made him who he was. Yes, Naruto answered. You cannot take away the Sharingan, I will not allow it. This time his voice was up. He was trying hard to get himself loose from his binds. But the roots held on strongly without wavering. It was almost amusing to watch the calm and collected Danzo trying very hard to get away from his binds. Even so, when his feet were dancing in the air, as he tried with all his power to break free, Naruto had robbed him of his chakra, thus making his efforts useless. He figured it would make things easy for Naruto. As much as he would have loved to see Danzo struggle to get loose while Naruto removed Uchiha property, Naruto was barely holding on. You have no say. You forfeited all rights to speak for yourself when you took Yugao and Karen, Naruto said as Danzo was lowered towards him. His face was brought first to him so he could remove the Sharingan on his right eye. I will not allow this. Naruto said nothing this time. He unwrapped the bandage on Danzo's forehead before driving his fingers into Danzo's eye socket and removed the Sharingan. He did it slowly, so that Danzo could feel everything. The old war hawk did not scream though. The process was surely painful, but he did not let loose of any signs of pain. The roots binding Danzo moved away from his right hand, allowing Naruto to grab it. This time, Danzo stared at Naruto with his eyes slightly wide. He had been robbed of his chakra to do anything. He felt weak to even attempt to struggle. There was also the fact that the roots were still binding him. Naruto channeled wind chakra into the blade and cut off Danzo's hand from the shoulder with one swift slash. This time Danzo let loose of a pained scream. Naruto did not care though, he was not even bothered by it. He threw the hand with Hashirama cells and 10 Sharingans into the air before setting it ablaze with Amaterasu. The roots binding the old war hawk freed him, but Naruto grabbed him by his neck, tightly, making it hard for him to breathe. I know that if you died your body would have exploded because of that self-destruct seal you placed on yourself so that no one could take that Sharingan. You did not believe that anyone would be capable of removing it while you were still alive because you had your root, Naruto stated, staring the elder. You faked being crippled, this time I will make sure that you will be crippled for real. The then slammed Danzo to the floor head first. He extended his right hand, and it transformed into a root. The root grabbed Danzo's left leg and tied itself around the leg, then it bended it in no way that a human's leg should bend. Gah! Danzo screamed as he felt his leg break. Naruto proceeded to crush each bone in Danzo's leg, making the elder scream even more. Naruto grabbed Danzo by his neck again and kicked him hard on the gut. You won't die because of this, but I have left you with nothing. Hate yourself, because there is nothing you could do and can do. If no longer wish to live, kill yourself. And know that Konoha will belong to me. I will be Hokage one day and you will die being pathetic without achieving your one true dream, he whispered before throwing the cripple away from him. Take Shisui's eye to the hideout, it should prove useful in the future, Naruto said, deactivating his EMS. Since Danzo was out of commission, Zetsu changed into his real form. What about him? If you leave him like this he will die. There is someone who will ensure that he does not die, he said. Oh, Zetsu smiled, you left one, but there was something else. He has seen me, don't you think he will tell Danzo about it? No, Naruto replied. I have made sure that he loses all memory of the night in few minutes. Zetsu walked beside Naruto as the two headed out of the root bases after a job well done. Zetsu disappeared once they made it out of the base. Naruto did the same via a swirl of black flames. Uchiha compound, where did you take them? Naruto asked Zetsu after having placed the silencing seals. Karen's place, Zetsu replied, looking at Naruto carefully. Good, Naruto said. I need something strong quick. The medicine you are using now isn't doing it for you. No, it's not strong enough. It weakens considerable when I activate Susanoo and I have a lot of pain on my left eye. Could have gorged it out. That explains why it was bleeding a lot more than usual. Zetsu was indeed wondering it had been bleeding more blood than normal. The pain had to have been caused by the fact that he had overused it and his current condition did not favor him at all. Naruto sighed and looked at himself, he needed a bath. Go to the hideout and bring me the Shinigami mask and everything else needed. I have to get Minato's soul from the death god's stomach tomorrow. With that being said, Naruto walked towards his bathroom to take a shower. Chapter 18. And Anbu woke Naruto from his sleep. He had slept more than he usually did. He did not complain though. The sleep was needed to rest his body. He figured the Anbu was to call him about the situation with Danzo. The root Anbu he had left alive had already taken the old war hawk to the hospital. This meant that Tsunade was now aware of his situation. Tsunade probably suspected him to have been the cause of the root commander's state of health. Well, he was the one who caused Danzo the damage. But he deserved it. He would have liked it if the man had not done anything stupid. The Sandaim's former teammates could not do anything without him being their brain. With how defeated the old war hawk was now, he could do nothing. But a man like Danzo could never be put down. Even when the Sandaime caught him in his attempt to assassinate him, he continued to do dirty work. The Sandaime had spared his life. But that did not stop him from committing more acts of treason in his disillusioned quest of protecting Konoha. The man was a fanatic in shinobi ideals. He believed shinobi rules had to be followed and shinobi were to give their lives for their village. But yet he himself never wanted to die. Shimura Danzo was afraid of death. With all his powers taken away from him, he would live in constant fear. He still had his enemies. Without any power to protect himself, he would surely be living in fear, fear that his enemies might come to crush him while he was down. It would be amusing for Naruto to watch though. Tell her I will there in a few minutes, Naruto said to the Anbu. It was the same man who had disturbed him while he was busy. Remembering that did not make him feel any good. Not with the fact that Tsunade had made a mockery of him by giving him the title of Sanin. They did not end their conversation well that day. No wonder Tsunade had been staying away from his way. She had never talked to him ever since that day. Hi, the Anbu said and disappeared. He had learned his lesson. He would not be returning here again to tell the man that Tsunade wanted him. He also knew that Tsunade had also learned the lesson, never annoy Uchiha Naruto. Naruto closed the door and went back to his room. Sighing, he put on his armor. Odd, he not been wearing his forehead protector for days now, and no one had said anything about it. They had all stayed quiet about it. Naruto looked at the metal plate for a moment before putting it on his forehead. It had been long since he actually felt good. Wearing his armor made him feel good. He had much to do for the day. He needed complete focus. Given the circumstances surrounding him, he could not completely focus. At least his armor brought back some focus. Naruto disappeared in a swirl of flames. Hokage's office. Tsunade and Jiraiya, the usual suspects. Both seemed to have been waiting for him to appear before them. Jiraiya had a rather serious expression on his face. It did not make Naruto feel uncomfortable or afraid about anything. He simply looked at both Sanins blankly. The pervert was returning his stare. Tsunade on the other hand was not. Their previous conversation was making her uneasy around the blonde. He had frankly scared her that day. Flashback. Tsunade was furious. Naruto was having the nerve to refuse her summon. Who did that? All her shinobi were under her control, no one refused her summons. Doing such a thing was insubordination and there were heavy penalties for such a thing. Today she would show that brat who the boss was. He was running the show like it was his. No, today she would show him that she was the one in charge. She was the Godime Hokage. She was not just the Godime Hokage, she was the world's strongest kunoichi and one of the legendary Sanin. Her strength was legendary. Not even Orochimaru dared to infuriate her. He knew she was dangerous when mad. But Naruto was doing that. He certainly did not know her. He thought that just because he had a special eye that gave him powers and was the hero of Kiri meant he could disrespect her authority. He was still a brat and needed to be shown his place. If she did not do it now, he would continue to disrespect her word. The word of the Hokage was law. Nobody had the right to go against it. Doing so resulted in heavy consequences. Naruto was not getting that. He was living like his own word was law. He was still in Konoha, the village her grandfather founded. In here, she was the ruler. Who did that brat think he was to tell her that he was busy when she had summoned him? Not even Jiraiya had the nerve to do something like that. Tsunade cracked her knuckles. She would certainly. The air in the office became cold. Which was odd because Naruto had just appeared in a swirl of black flames. Flames were supposed to be hot, not cold. So why did the room feel so cold after Naruto's appearance? Was it just her? No, it certainly was not. She could feel that her Anbu had also felt it too. They reacted to the coldness. She was not the only one feeling it. Tsunade looked at Naruto's yes. They were staring at her hypnotically. They were also steel cold. The coldness seemed to freeze all her anger. The coldness in his eyes did not make her feel comfortable. She no longer felt like she could or wanted to punish Naruto for his insubordination. What is it so important that you had to disturb my work? His tone never betrayed the look on his eyes. It was cold and demanding. Tsunade was surprised, he never used that kind of tone to her. He had always stayed blank or neutral when speaking to her. Tsunade steeled herself and battled against the coldness that was threatening to consume her. You have gone too far, Naruto. You are a shinobi of this village and under my control. You don't do whatever you please in this village. When I call you to my office, I expect you to be in my office. I do not care. Naruto cut her off while she was still ranting. Tsunade. Again the tone was cold, but this time it felt like death. It reached down deep into her heart and cut clean all her defensives. Naruto had never called her by her name before. Tsunade was not seeing the usual calm and collected Naruto who never showed any emotions. This one was emitting the red lights. Even her Anbu felt ready to jump in at any time. Tsunade breathed deeply and held her nerve. She was the Godime Hokage and was not going to back down in a challenge by a brat. She had to show guts in front of her subordinates. If she did not do that, Naruto would continue to disrespect her. She was not going to have that. The Godime Hokage hardened her glare at Naruto. She mastered all the power she could and raised her chakra as high as she could. Listen, brat, I am Hokage here and I will not allow you to undermine my rule. Senju, Naruto stated in a rather calm and smooth tone. He had brushed off the weight of Tsunade's chakra like it was nothing. He raised his own for a second, shattering any confidence Tsunade had. Even though it was raised for just a second, Tsunade felt it. It was not anything good. It felt like it had pressed her down for minutes instead of the second it was brought out. She looked into Naruto's eyes carefully and saw the really annoyed look on his face. She felt cold shivers down her spine. Why did you send for me? I wanted to tell you that I had given you the title of Sannin, giving you the same rights as Jiraiya, Tsunade stated quickly, not wanting to look into his eyes further. The only thing that came out of Naruto's mouth was, "MXM," and then he was gone. Tsunade was mocking him. How could she call him when he was busy to inform him of a title he did not value? Sannin were nothing to him. The title held no value to him. It was a mockery to his power to give him the title. He had already told Jiraiya and Orochimaru what he thought about the title. In the mood he was in, commenting on such a thing was not worth it. Tsunade felt relieved with his departure. She was not going to call him anytime soon. She felt though he was even more displeased that she had called him just to inform him that she was giving him the title of Sannin. Jiraiya had informed her that he did not think too high of the title. Flashback end. What is it? Naruto asked the two Sannins with his hands folded across his chest. Danzo, Jiraiya stated seriously with his eyes narrowing at Naruto suspiciously. He was more willing to talk than Tsunade, who seemed hesitant. What about him? He knew already what they were referring to, but because he was in a good mood he would play oblivious to the whole thing. Telling Tsunade that he had been responsible would only complicate things with him and Konoha, now anyway. He would have to have had reasons to do it. Good thing he had planned for such a thing. He just had to set things in motion. He is currently at the hospital. When he was brought there by one of his Nei Anbu, he was barely alive. Shizune and I managed to save his life. He was in a bad condition. His right eye was removed and his right hand was also removed. One of his leg was crushed and unfortunately, I could do nothing to save it, Tsunade stated calmly. Her tone was low unlike any other days. She had been alarmed when she saw the state in which Danzo was. She could not understand who could have done such a thing to the old war hawk. Danzo may have been old, but even she knew he was no pushover. I went to check his bases, and found something sickening. His entire root force was slaughtered. The walls were bloody, corpses were all over. They were killed by wood. We also found some traces of black flames, Jiraiya stated in the same serious tone he had used earlier. So, Naruto said, taking a seat because he knew this was going to be some meeting. Did you have anything to do with it? I can't find anyone heartless and cold enough to do something like that. Jiraiya said it without fear. Anyone who would slaughter an entire Anbu organization had to ruthless and heartless. Always the suspect, Naruto said, keeping his expression unreadable. Did you do it? Maybe, was all Naruto said. All the evidence point against you, Naruto. You and Itachi are the only ones capable of using black flames because of your Mangekyo Sharingan. The Nei were killed with Mokuten and the only known users are you and Tenzo. There is also a question we have not asked you, how can you use Mokuten? As far as we know only the Shodai could use it. We know why Tenzo can use it. You on the other hand we can't. Jiraiya voiced out his thoughts. All the evidence did point to Naruto. Itachi could not have done it. He did not kill like that. If he had managed to sneak into the village, he would have known because he had been monitoring the Uchiha's movements. He had kept a close eye on him. He could not have entered the village without his knowledge. Itachi also did not use Mokuten Jutsu. The Nei were laid waste by Mokuten Jutsu. It could not have been him. Tenzo, a Mokuten Jutsu user, was a loyal shinobi to the village. He could not have done it. Tenzo was not strong enough to accomplish the feat. They also could tell where the man was during the night. But Naruto was another story. The blonde could use Mokuton in black flames. He was also powerful enough. Killed the Nae. He was also cold enough to do it without care. Everything else pointed to the blonde. The problem was proving it. There were no witnesses, even Naruto's chakra signature or scent was not found in the root bases. Inuzuka dogs had already sniffed around the place. There was no trace of Naruto's presence. The pieces of wood gave no indication of who the user was. Naruto could deny everything. But Jiraiya was sure it was him. Asking was just a way to get a confession. Interesting, Naruto said after being called cold and heartless. He was no way insulted by those words. They were just words that people say whenever they felt like it. He cared less for it. You are not answering the question, Naruto, Tsunade said, composing herself as Hokage now. She held no love for Danzo, she would have even rejoiced if he had been killed. She hated him with all her being. But could not do anything against him because he always appeared clean. I have no need to give you an answer, Naruto said calmly. Naruto, this matter is serious and needs to be solved quickly. What do you think will happen when the villagers find out that one of the Anbu organization was wiped out and their leader left crippled? Jiraiya questioned forcefully, trying to get the blonde to talk. Like Tsunade, he did not care for Danzo, but the matter itself was serious. They needed answers to help solve and cover things up so that villagers were not put into a state of panic. They will panic thinking of another massacre, Naruto stated calmly. He looked between Jiraiya and Tsunade. But I don't see anyone crying over Danzu's situation. I have to say though, I am pleased with what has happened to him. He was an arrogant old fool who thought he could control everything behind the shadows. He was not going to hide his dislike of the old war hawk. Everyone knew he did not like him. There was no point in hiding it. Yes, no one is complaining, but Danzo is an important figure to the village. Root also had its uses. Although I would hate to admit it, Danzo had trained them well. We cannot simply turn a blind eye when something like this happened, Tsunade said, looking straight at Naruto. She would not be doing a good job as Hokage if she allowed things to happen without questioning. She had to get answers to be able to deal with the situation. She could deal with it properly if she did not know all the details. You know, Danzo was evil. He did so many things that could have had him executed long ago. But the Sandaime allowed him to live. You also know he has committed acts of treason, but yet you were doing nothing. Naruto paused for a moment. Both of you have been weak to act against the man. You could have handled him a long time ago, but you failed. It's fine though. What happened is much more satisfying than what you could have done. What are you saying? Danzo got what he deserved. He should have been taken care of long ago. Root should not have been existing as of now, but it was existing. He was just another piece of war that was lingering around trying to pollute the world with his ideas. But now that he has nothing, he is much more amusing to watch, Naruto gave his reply to the Sanins. It was amusing for him to watch the great commander of Root struggling. He should go to the hospital and watch him struggle to stay in perfect health at the hospital. The punishment he delivered to the man was pleasing to him. I might not pity him, but we cannot overlook some things. We would not be doing a good job if we just let things slide, Tsunade stated. She did not pity Danzo. Not even a little. If anything, she could have wished she would one day be his judge. He had always acted high and almighty towards her. But now he was down to earth and humbled. Jiraiya nodded, agreeing with Tsunade. This matter is serious and has to be handled well so that we cannot have it again. It is like the Uchiha massacre all over again, he said, shaking his head. When I say that Danzo should not have been alive, I meant it. He did so many acts of treason and yet your sensei did not punish him, he simply allowed him to live and watch him do what he pleased, Naruto said to the two. And you don't do what you please, Jiraiya said sarcastically under his breath. Naruto heard him, but he was not going to comment on it, it was not worth the effort. When your sensei took over as Hokage for the second term, Danzo was against the idea, he wanted to be Hokage. But Sarutobi beat him to it. He felt bitter that the position had slipped through his fingers again. It was Sarutobi who was standing in the way of his quest. He paused for a moment, looking at the two Sanins carefully. He hated how Sarutobi did things, and so he sent assassins after the Sandaime. With the Sandaime killed, he could become Hokage. If they had said it was somebody else, they would have been shocked. But because it was Danzo, they were not. The man was capable of doing anything. It was not past him to attempt to have the Sandaime killed for the position of Hokage. Everyone knew that he was after the seat. He had been after it for a long time now. But each time Sarutobi had always stood in his way. Considering that it is Danzo we are talking about, I would not find that hard to believe. But such an act is treason and Danzo should have been executed for. Even if it happened, Sensei would have told me about it, Jiraiya stated. His sensei had always been honest with him. It was they got along, even when sometimes he hated some of the choices the Sandaime made. He could not think that he would have kept something serious like that from him. You believe that your sensei would tell you everything, Naruto said. It was no question. How foolish and ignorant, he finished. Watch what you say, Naruto. I am not those council fools. Jiraiya stated firmly, glaring at the blonde. He was not going to have Naruto speak to him the way he wanted. He should know that he was a Sannin and deserved some respect. Tsunade merely shook her head. She was used to this sight. When talking with Naruto, it was given that he would say things like that. Jiraiya had known him longer than she had and yet he seemed not used to hearing the blonde say things like that. Her teammate really should learn how to handle the blonde or at least have a conversation with him without getting pissed with what he was saying. Yes, you are a Sannin. Orochimaru said the same thing before I killed him, Naruto said, brushing off the title of Sannin. This caused Jiraiya to harden his glare. Tsunade remained calm. She was not going to get worked over things like these. But the thing is, anyone who believes that their sensei can tell them everything is a fool and ignorant of certain things, Naruto continued. He believed that because it was true. No matter how close one was to their sensei, they would never be told everything. Senseis only tell their students what they want them to hear and know. He knew that Madara only showed him what he wanted him to know. It was necessary that he showed him everything he was shown. From far it may look a lot, but Naruto knew that there are certain things that Madara kept to himself, things that he would not find anywhere no matter how much effort he puts on the search. Are you speaking from experience? Maybe, but that is just the truth that even a child should know, Naruto said. As I was saying, Danzo attempted to have the Sandaime killed because he believed he was no longer worthy and suitable for leading the village. But the Sandaime found out about the assassination attempt. Do you know what he did? How could they know if they were not even aware of the treason Danzo had committed? Nothing, Naruto said. Not even a slap. He just allowed him to continue living like he had been. What evidence do you have to prove this? Tsunade asked. Those were some serious allegations. If she had been in her sensei's shoes, she would have had the old Warhawk executed. It was what he deserved. Anybody who attempted to have the Hokage killed should be killed, not allowed to live like everything was okay. If he did it once, what would stop him from doing it again? Asked Kakashi. He was the one who told the Sandaime about it. At that time he was still working for Danzo when it happened. Kakashi was also involved in this. Jiraiya asked but he got no answer from Naruto. The blonde was not going to answer a question he had already provided with an answer. If it is true, I can't believe that old fool could do something like that, Tsunade said. She knew her sensei very well. He could at times be senile, cunning and manipulative like Danzo when he wanted things to go his way. But sometimes he could be the kindest person you can find. She also knew that he was very forgiving, and she would not put it past him to allow Danzo to live after what he had done. Allowing Danzo to live was not the only foolish choice the Sandaime made, Naruto stated impassively. His eyes looked the two in front of him intensively to see their reaction. The reaction they gave him made him smile inwardly. Things were now proceeding his way. He also allowed Orochimaru to leave the village after catching him experimenting. The Sandaime could not bring himself to kill or arrest his favorite student. He simply stood and allowed him to run away. Naruto revealed another thing both the Sannin were not aware of despite Orochimaru being their former teammate and the Sandaime their sensei. Sensei did what? That came from Jiraiya's mouth. Orochimaru was the favorite student, both of you know that. The Sandaime saw him as someone who could succeed him as Hokage. Even when all facts pointed out that Orochimaru was evil, he could not bring himself to believe it, hence his denial over the issue. He did deny him the position of Hokage. But could not do anything when he had caught him red-handed. It certainly was a foolish move by the Sandaime to allow Orochimaru to escape. Perhaps he may have been in shock, but he was the Hokage and had to act as one. Can you prove it? Jiraiya asked with narrowed eyes. No, Naruto answered with a nonchalant shrug. Both the Sandaime and Orochimaru are dead, he said. Jiraiya wanted to tell Naruto that he should keep his mouth shut if he did not have the evidence to back his allegations. But it hit him. When has Naruto ever lied to him? What purpose would it serve for Naruto to lie? He was not the one to lie, he would rather say no than lie. Do you know that Danzo worked with Orochimaru in abducting children for the latter experiments? Orochimaru fled from the village because of it. But Danzo stayed behind, no one did anything to him. The Sandaime knew it, but he refused to take any action against that fool, Naruto said, again revealing some things. Jiraiya this time nodded. I always knew that Danzo worked with Orochimaru, I just could never prove it, he stated. He had tried to get the evidence to prove that indeed that the old war hawk had been involved with Orochimaru's sick ways. He is quite sneaky, Naruto stated. Danzo was good at covering his tracks, very good. But for him, no rather Zetsu to miss something was just close to impossible. That made him effective to gather intel. Yes, he is, Tsunade said in agreement. That man knew how to play his cards. He knew when to strike and when not to. She was never able to catch him on the act. Danzo also tried once to steal Kakashi's Sharingan after fearing that his own would go blind due to overuse. Naruto could see the shocked reactions from both Sanins. Yes, things were certainly going the way he wanted them. Hold on, Naruto, are you saying that Danzo had a Sharingan? Naruto really disliked being asked obvious questions. But for things to proceed nicely, he would have to bear with it. That is what I just said, isn't? There were some speculation about it, but even so I find it hard to believe, Jiraiya said quietly. It is not hard to believe for me. That man worships the Sharingan. He sees it as a perfect weapon. I would not shocked if he had killed an Uchiha just to get it, Tsunade stated. She would never need proof to actually believe that Danzo had the Sharingan implanted on himself. I have always wondered what his bandages were hiding since it was obviously not injuries he claimed to have suffered. Then Jiraiya stared at Naruto. This explains why his right eye was gorged out. But it also gives you motive to attack him. If Danzo had a stolen Sharingan, then the head clan of the Uchiha clan would have surely done something to get it back, he said. Naruto had anticipated Jiraiya to say something like that. Yes, things were certainly going according to plan. He could see Tsunade's eyes firmly on him to see how he would answer this one. You are correct, that is how any head clan would react, Naruto said, surprising the two Sanins who were expecting him to deny or try to get out of what Jiraiya had implied. But, they thought he would say something like, that is not how I would react, but that did not come. That is not important. The important matter is that Danzo is a criminal. I know that you Jiraiya do not know that he took part in the sand invasion by assisting Orochimaru. What would he gain by doing something like that? Before Naruto could reply, there was a knock in the door. Ah, just in time, he thought. Enter. Tsunade said, looking towards the door. Uchiha Sasuke entered the office holding a pile of files. Tsunade raised a curious brow at this. What is it, Sasuke? As you can see, I am currently busy, she said calmly. You must be busy questioning Naruto about Danzo, no. What is it? Jiraiya asked in place of Tsunade with suspicious eyes. I came here to report about an S-rank operation that was carried out last night by the military police force, Sasuke stated with a straight face. Are you saying that you were the one that almost killed Danzo and slaughtered his root? Tsunade asked with a serious tone she had not been using in front of Naruto before Sasuke came. Sasuke shook his head. I said it was done by the police force, but that does not necessarily mean that I did it, he stated. The two Sanins' eyes immediately went to Naruto. There was no one who could have done it other than him. There was no member in the police as of yet other than Sasuke and him. The shinobi Tsunade had given Sasuke were not yet members, officially just trainees. You, Tsunade glared at Naruto. I knew it was him. There is no one cold and heartless like him enough to do it. He would never mind dirtying his hands, that came from Jiraiya's mouth. Tsunade turned to Sasuke. On whose authority did you permit such an act? What possessed you enough to allow such an operation? On my authority, Hokage-sama, Sasuke replied calmly, not threatened by Tsunade's hard glare. Your authority. Tsunade released a bitter chuckle. You have no authority, Uchiha. You cannot perform such a task within the village without my approval. I can do that, Sasuke said, surprising both Tsunade and Jiraiya. The police force was formed to eliminate internal threats and to be a watcher of other shinobi. While we have no authority to act against Anbu under your control without your permission and hard evidence, we could act against Danzo. He had his own military force that according to Konoha does not exist. His root was loyal to him and him only. Root was not under your control, but under Danzu's. Why? The question was why Sasuke had permitted such a task. He was guilty of countless treason acts dating back to the Second Shinobi World War. As for his root, they were just as guilty. They performed such acts without a second thought. They did anything that Danzo ordered them to do, even if the order was to kill the Hokage. He was also guilty of stealing Uchiha property and most recently, the kidnapping of Uzumaki Karen and Izuki Yugao, Sasuke explained, placing the files he held on Tsunade's desk. Tsunade and Jiraiya quickly went through the files. They saw the evidence of everything that Naruto had been telling them. There was also evidence that Danzo had worked secretly with Root to try to get the peace treaty between Konoha and Iwagakure scrapped because he did not want it. He wanted the war between the two villages to continue until Konoha crushed Iwa. There were a number of other operations that Danzo did along with Orochimaru. Some of the things were sickening. Both Sanins clearly saw how Root's loyalty to Danzo was deep. If they were willing to assassinate the Hokage so that Danzo could become Hokage, what more could they do? It was not beyond them to start a rebellion causing a civil war in the village, if Danzo had gotten tired of waiting for the title of Hokage. They would have also not laid back should Danzu's life be in danger by Konoha if his crimes were discovered. It took some minutes for the Sanins to go through all the files. And when they did, both sighed and took a few moments of silence. Tsunade leaned back on her chair rubbing her temple. She could not believe that Danzo had done it all. Added to that, he had kidnapped Yugao and Karen, the only two women who seemed to be close to Naruto. He had gone far, that she would agree. She was not even surprised that Naruto had decided to lay waste of Root and leave Danzo crippled, for real this time. There was evidence that proved that Danzo should have been executed ago. She could not deny the evidence. This also proved that the police force was well within its rights to do such an operation. With all the evidence, she would have to get Danzo executed. She was not going to watch him suffer. Executing him was the best option. Taking risks with a man like Danzo was certainly something she would avoid. But still, I would have liked it you told me about this first, the Godime Hokage stated. It was necessary that nobody knew of it. Danzo had his eyes everywhere. Could you imagine what would happen if his root got wind that their master was going to be executed? Sasuke asked, looking straight to Tsunade. They would have rebelled. I don't think that Danzo would have just lied down so that he could be killed, Jiraiya replied instead of Tsunade. Exactly, Sasuke said. That is why Root had to be eliminated first before Danzo, and without anyone knowing, of course, Naruto had killed them only for what happened to Karen and Yugao, and Sasuke knew that. You planned these all, didn't you? Jiraiya questioned, looking straight at Naruto. You are the one who supplied Sasuke with all the evidence. He could not have gotten his hands on such files on his own. Naruto did not comment. This forced Jiraiya to speak again. Although I find this suspicious, I will not deny that Danzo is indeed guilty of countless treasons and criminal activity. With all this evidence, he can be executed and we will not have to worry about Root doing anything against the village. Tsunade nodded to Jiraiya's words. At least we can now deal with him, she said. Sasuke, you can go, but I expect you to be at the council chambers today 1 p.m. sharp, Tsunade stated. He would have to explain things to the council. It was his operation. Sasuke nodded and went to take his files, but Tsunade stopped him. What are you doing? These are files of the first operation of the new police force. The evidence will be locked inside our HQ, this is also a classified matter, Sasuke explained. Can't you give me copies? Sasuke shook his head. That is not according to our policies. Evidence gathered by the police force belongs to the police force. You alone can only be allowed to see them. I am even reporting this because this matter is of high sensitivity. Tsunade sighed. Fine, she said. Just make sure you bring them at the meeting later. Sasuke nodded and took all his files before going away. He had done what he had come to do. Tsunade looked at Naruto. One could think that the police force was just used by him to get away with what he did. But of course, she could not deny that Danzo was a threat to the village's peace. He was guilty for the crimes, but Naruto had to have had all the evidence all along. He did nothing though. The only conclusion she came up with was that he had moved now because Danzo had kidnapped Yugao and Karen. If Danzo had not done so, then he would have not done anything. He would have kept the evidence with himself and released it only when it was convenient for him to do so. She really needed to work on that. Naruto had more intel, knowledge to secrets than she and Jiraiya had. The first question had to be asked, how does he get the information? She could say that some information he got from Orochimaru. But what about village secrets? It had been long suspected before she even came back to the village that Naruto knew and had a lot more secrets. No one was just able to find them since he never left anything behind. We have to talk about some things, Jiraiya said, finally breaking Tsunade out of her thoughts. But first, we told you that we know how Tenzo can use Mokuden, we don't know how you can. Naruto looked at Jiraiya for a moment before looking at Tsunade. Nothing would possess him to tell them of the secrets to his body. Nobody could know about it. Some things were better left unsaid. Tsunade would surely call for his execution if she found out that he had her grandfather's DNA implanted on him. Genkai Keke, Naruto said shortly. We know that, but how? Both your parents did not have it. I refused to answer, Naruto stated. It is the same as you asked me about the origins of my Sharingan. Jiraiya lost his serious expression and sighed. He should have expected this. Naruto only gave answers when it was convenient for him. About the title of Sannin. Tsunade asked quietly. You should know that I see no value in such a title, why should I be happy about such a title? Naruto asked. The title will give you the rights you wanted, Tsunade stated. No, Naruto said calmly. I won't accept it. It is an insult to me. I have already told you what I feel about your pathetic title, haven't I? Naruto's eyes were boring into the toad sage. Abundantly, Jiraiya said. The blonde never did respect his title. Sannin meant nothing to the blonde. Many people were afraid to even start a fight with him, or any Sannin, but Naruto just shrugged them off as some pathetic shinobi clinging onto a title. Tsunade nodded with a sigh. You will get your permit, she said. I had just thought it would prove beneficiary to Konoha should the Sannins be restored. Not everyone thinks of Sannin the way you do. That is because everybody else does not see things as I do. Even you should not be proud of a title given after failure. Both Sannins refused to respond to that. None of them ever liked of being reminded of the fact that their title was received after they were defeated by Hanzo. Despite that, they were proud of their title. They were not just some normal shinobi, they were cage-level shinobi. You will get what you want, Tsunade said. But I want you to share with me some village secrets that I am not aware of. You seem to know more than I do. That is doable, Naruto said. I thought you were going to refuse that. Jiraiya stated looking at Naruto. Naruto merely shrugged. Is it all? When will you start sharing? In due time, Naruto replied. He was not going to tell more secrets than he had already done. It would be unwise for him to do so. Akatsuki needs to be discussed. I have looked at the files you gave me. Some of the members seem troublesome but nothing that can't be handled, Jiraiya stated. They have been quite so far, but it will only do us good if we prepare for them, Tsunade added to what Jiraiya had said. But before we begin that, we must talk about the Kyuubi. The Akatsuki are after it rather than you. What are the Kyuubi? Naruto asked. Back in Kiri you summoned it. When I asked you about it, you refused to say anything, Jiraiya remembered the time very well. So your question is, how can I summon the Kyuubi? Jiraiya nodded. Because I can, Naruto answered. Why do you resist on telling why you can do it? Is it because you are controlling it with your Sharingan? An eyebrow from Naruto rose at those words. You believe I can do something like that were by no means a question. I am not controlling Kyuubi with my Sharingan. I will say the same thing as I said before, I can summon it because I can. That is not really an answer, Tsunade said quietly. It should not be even possible for you to summon it if it's sealed inside of you. I believe Minato's seal was strong enough to stop something like that from happening. In all accounts, it should not be possible for a Jinchuriki to summon her Biju. It is only possible to summon a Biju that is not sealed, but even so, one had to be in contract with a Biju. If Naruto could summon the Kyuubi, it had to mean that it was no longer sealed inside of him. But that would also be impossible. No one can survive the extraction of a Biju, especially a strong one like the Kyuubi. If Naruto had released the Kyuubi, then he would have died. It really should not matter if I can summon the Kyuubi or not, Naruto said. What is of importance is that the Kyuubi is safe and secured. I guess you are right. We are trying to keep it away from the hands of Akatsuki. But then again, if they want to get it, they would have to go through you first, Tsunade said with a sigh. If they were going to go through Naruto, then the task would surely be a hard one. With what he had done, she had no doubt a single S-rank criminal would not be able to take him down. There was also Jiraiya, Sasuke and Kakashi. With them around, the Kyuubi would surely be safe. But the other villagers do have the same protection as they do. Jiraiya sighed. Well, as long as we still have it, he said. Then what are we going to do about them? I have already told you I will deal with the leader, Naruto stated. None of the other members interests me, but should they come my way, I will not have any problem in making sure they are okay. That makes me curious as to who he is since you won't say his name, Jiraiya said shaking his head. I will head to Suna today and after that I will go straight to Kumogakure to inform the Raikage of what we know. That sounds good, Tsunade stated with a small smile. I believe that is all, Naruto said standing up from his seat. Don't forget to be at the council meeting today at 1 p.m., Tsunade stated. He was part of the council being the Uchiha head clan, hence his required presence at the meeting. Naruto did not say anything to the Hokage. He simply disappeared in a swirl of flames. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya. I hope I won't regret giving him the same rights as you, she said. You won't, Jiraiya said in a comforting tone. With things like this, we can watch him move closely since he will have to report to you when he does leave the village. I do know that he won't tell you each time he leaves. But it is better this way. I hope you are right, Jiraiya. Of course I am. Let us just allow him to think that he can do and get whatever he wants. We don't know what his motives are. Until then, we keep things this way. How long then, are we going to play it like this? Not long, I have a feeling that things will shape up soon, Jiraiya said with a thoughtful look on his face. Uchiha compound, everything went well. Sasuke asked as Naruto appeared inside their house. Yes, Naruto replied. He had asked Sasuke to cover for him since he had not bothered to erase anything that would link him to the incident in Danzu's bases. Sasuke was more than willing to do so after he had told the Uchiha why he had done what he did. He had also supplied Sasuke with the evidence against Danzo. Of course that was all done last night after he had punished Danzo and talked with Zetsu. He knew that Tsunade would ask questions and the only person they would suspect would be him. Even if he had erased all evidence inside the root bases, they would have still suspected it was him. They just could never prove it. He liked how things were at the moment. He did not want any more complications than he could handle at once. Dealing with so many troubles would only give him much to think about. This will cause him to divide his efforts into doing certain things. He liked to focus much on a few things to achieve results that would be pleasing to him. If Tsunade and Jiraiya started to play suspicious than they had already been, it would prove bothersome. Not that he could not handle the two Sanins. He wanted them to be in charge, they were doing a fine job at leading the village. Unnecessary complications had to be avoided if they could be. But at the same time he had to keep things interesting for his own well-being. With the punishment to Danzo, Naruto knew that even when Tsunade did suspect him, she would request Sasuke look at it while she carries her own investigation. Doing things like that would prove effective in gathering much information. To avoid all that, he decided to play it safe and talked Sasuke into going with his plan. The Uchiha was willing to go with it, as it would strengthen the need for the police force and cast away any doubt that he cannot do the job. With just a few days after given the green light, he had busted a man who had been escaping the axe for quite some time. That would do well for the police force. If he requested help, it would surely come because of the effectiveness of the police force. I just hope that Tsunade does not become suspicious of me too. It's bad enough that she is always cautious around you, Sasuke said looking straight at Naruto. I highly doubt that, Naruto said. She could never suspect you of anything, not with your change. I hope so. But it does not matter anyway, as long as she does not get into the way of my work, Sasuke stated after a few seconds of silence. He did so with a shrug. Karen is waiting for you at the training ground. Naruto nodded and disappeared in a swirl of flames. He had not spoken to the girl ever since she was rescued by Zetsu. He was positive that Zetsu had not said anything. He just hoped that it was not that one those conversations he would rather not have. Training ground. You don't waste time, huh? Karen stated as Naruto appeared. She was referring to what he had done to Danzo. Not even a day after the bastard kidnapped her, and the man was lying in a hospital with a broken body and his entire military force wiped out. No, Naruto said looking at the red-haired girl intensively. I came here so that you could train me as hard as you can. When they took me, I felt weak. I could not stop them from taking me. I was hopeless. I thought I was surely going to die. Karen paused for a moment. I now understand your words, why you wanted me to become strong, she smiled slightly. Interesting, Naruto said. I will make you strong. I guess that as long as we live in this world we will always strive to become strong. The strong will always devour the weak, Karen said smiling sadly. Is that so? Yes, I mean, I was weak, that is why I was taken. You are strong, such things cannot happen to you. As long as there is someone stronger with an evil heart, we the weak will always suffer. But I guess it is just how the world works. From the day she first understood things, it had always been like that. Weaker people always fell down to the strong. She saw Orochimaru do many cruel things. He was powerful, and many trembled before his name. In all his might, someone stronger came and devoured him. It's like there was always someone stronger who will always try to devour you. Those who survive are the smart ones, those who associate themselves with the powerful. You are thinking that is how the world works, right? Karen nodded. Do not conform yourself to such principles. Make your own principles. Do not follow the beliefs of the world. That is easy for you to say. You have the power to back up your principles. Even if I enforced my own principles, someone stronger than me will just come and crush me, Karen said in a defeated tone. Perhaps, Naruto answered shortly. Have you settled well in this village? Not really. The village is great but it's just not for me, Karen replied after a few seconds of thinking. Gurren must have already completed the Crystal Palace right now, Naruto said more to himself than Karen. Crystal Palace. Gurren, you must know her. She was one of Orochimaru's most loyal and trusted subordinate and use a rare Genkei Keke, crystal release, Naruto explained. Oh, I know her, Karen said. She never had any good memories with the woman though. She seemed to have problems with anyone who seemed to be close to Orochimaru. She also conducted some research about her rare bloodline. Orochimaru had been very much interested in it at the beginning. He lost some interest when he found that he could not harvest it to use for himself without having to take over Gurren's body. She is the one heading the rebuilding of Oto, Naruto said. What is Crystal Palace? It is my HQ in Oto. It is called Crystal Palace because its design takes advantage of Gurren's ability. It is also huge, bigger than the Hokage's tower. It has 4 floors, underground floor being my private quarters. Its outside appearance comprises of wood and crystal. And inside it's mostly crystal. The ceilings and floors are crystals. Wow, it must look exquisite, Karen said impressed. Who designed it? I did, Naruto said. I will take you there some time after I have taught you all the basics. You will live there, while also helping Gurren with the rebuilding. Konoha already knows I am associated with you. Aren't they going to figure out that you are behind the rebuilding of Oto if they see me there? You will keep your presence hidden away from everyone. You have done that with Orochimaru. Do you think I can hide forever? Not at all, you just have to hide until the rebuilding is completed. Whatever Konoha says by then, I will handle. Karen nodded with a smile. Well, at least I will have something to do other than training. And I can't wait to see your palace. It has to be wonderful and a dream place to live. She now had a dreamy look on her face. Naruto merely shrugged. He had designed the palace that way because he wanted it to be of the highest quality. He did not want it to be just normal. It had to be created by rare materials that he liked. He was not the one for looks, but having a palace of that stature put in something different of his taste. And besides, Uchiha Naruto had to live in the best building. You should return to your house, I have other matters to tend to before I train you, Naruto said. And we were getting along just fine, Karen thought. He had to ruin the moment by sending her away. She smiled though, at least he was not what she had first thought he was. Fine, she said. Is he going to be any trouble? Sasuke told me he was still alive. Naruto shook his head. No, he is going to be executed soon. It's a fitting end for him after the punishment I gave him, don't you think? Karen nodded. Before I forget, she said. Yugao-san said she wanted to speak with you. That was the only sound that escaped from Naruto's mouth. I can't believe I am going to ask you this. You are a guy who rarely smiles, never shows any emotions, does not think highly of relationships. I also believe that you do not know what love is and how to express it, Karen stated looking straight at Naruto. Nonetheless, I am going to ask this, is Yugao-san your girlfriend? Naruto looked at the girl for a moment with his blank expression intact. Was she expecting him to actually answer that kind of question? He disappeared without another word. He was not going to bother himself by even taking his time to think of such a question. He had far more pressing matters to deal with. Karen sighed as Naruto disappeared. He did nothing nor even show any physical reaction to her question. He almost likely shrugged it off as nothing important. She turned around to walk away from the training ground. She stopped for a moment. She really needed to learn Shunshin. Sometimes she got tired of walking. Unknown location 10 dark figures stood in a circle. They were the most wanted criminals in the elemental nations. They were S-rank criminals, well most of them anyway except for one. These were men that brought fear to those who saw their famous black cloaks with red cloud pattern. They were the Akatsuki. It had been long since they all gathered like this. The leader never called them to assemble unless there was something important that needed to be discussed. He never called to see if they were all still alive. He just expected to be alive, regardless of how many years they spent apart without any form of communication. These men all gathered here came from different villages. Some had different reasons for joining the criminal organization that hunts down bijus. The organization did not just take weaklings amongst them. They took only the best the world had to offer. That was what made them feared, their members were strong. The leader stood quietly and halted the whispers that had begun around the place. They were mere holographic images, but it did the job. They could not all gather at the same place at once. There are massive egos in everyone. Having many strong people in a single place would prove disastrous. It has been long time since we all gathered here, one said looking around the group. Yes, it has been, another said with a nod. Who the fuck are those? Hidan yelled, asked looking at the two new recruits that were with them. He was seeing a masked man with a Sharingan on his right eye and another who was calmly watching everyone with calculative eyes. I did not know that there was another Uchiha, Itachi, Kisame stated looking at his partner with the corner of his eyes. Not surprisingly, Itachi did not respond. Oi. Is anybody going to answer my question? Hidan questioned again, his voice loud as it had been at first. Shut up Hidan. I am sure Leader Sama will introduce them to us, Kakuzu said quieting his partner. He always had to be the one to quiet him once he opened his loud and annoying mouth. Quiet, the leader said firmly with his ripple pattern eyes pulsing with power slightly. There was calm in the meeting place. Everyone quieted down and looked at the leader. Before we can discuss anything, I would like to introduce to you our new members, Tobi and Kabuto, he said. Kabuto. Orochimaru's number 2, Sasori stated in a rough voice that was just blank of any emotions. What is that motherfucker doing here? Hidan yelled not getting why someone like Kabuto would be allowed to join them. He was not an S-rank criminal after all. The group comprised of S-rank shinobi, they did not need anyone to mess that. Wisely the leader chose to ignore the question, for now. Tobi and Kabuto will be partners and will work in gathering intel rather than capturing Jinchurikis, he stated. So is he an Uchiha? One asked looking at the masked man's right eye. The leader looked at Tobi for a moment. I might be or not, a deep tone of the new member echoed through the meeting place. It was quite surprising how deep and cold the tone was. It was just dark and left everyone without another question. The leader cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. He was not affected by the atmosphere Tobi had created. We will continue with our plans to gather all bijus even though the Sanbi has yet to form, he stated. Sasori and Deidara will go after Shukaku. Its Jinchuriki has become the case cage now, meaning the task will be a little bit troublesome. I expect no failure, nonetheless. Sasori and Deidara nodded quietly. It would not look good on them if they failed to retrieve the weakest Biju of them all. Their team was effective when doing other missions, but now they were faced with another task. They would make sure they succeeded without failure though. Kakuzu and Hidan, you will travel to the outskirts of Kumo to fetch the two tails. All the necessary arrangements have been made, the leader stated. He then turned to Toby, do you have anything to add? Kumo Jinchuriki have full control over their Bijus. They can prove to be bothersome than any other. Watch out for Uchiha Naruto, he is not just your normal shinobi, Toby stated calmly with his dark tone. There rest of you will be given your assignments in due time. I expect to have Shukaku in no more than a week, the leader stated firmly. Dismissed. One by one the members faded away until there were only 3 left, the leader, Toby and Konan. Naruto will prove to be troublesome. When the time comes, you should be the one to collect the Kyuubi, Toby stated before he too disappeared. The leader slightly narrowed his eyes, but said nothing. He and his partner simply disappeared, leaving the meeting place empty. Meanwhile Naruto had just finished retrieving Minato's soul from the Shinigami. He did not speak to the man, nor allowed him to speak. After releasing him, he simply put him away inside his coffin for later use. He would have to go Dragon Land to the Kyuubi to finish his business. He was still at the Uchiha compound. He would need to prepare for his departure as he would be gone for a few hours. It was still morning, so he would return before noon for the council meeting. Is everything set? Zetsu asked as he appeared inside Naruto's room. Yes, Naruto answered quietly. And Oto. Your palace is nearly complete. They are just doing the finishing touches inside and then it will be complete, Zetsu reported. Naruto nodded, that is good, He trailed off when he saw the look on Zetsu's face. What is it? Someone is coming, Zetsu stated. Go, I will reverse summon myself in a few moments, Naruto stated. He walked towards his door and opened it. Just as he did, Yugao came into view. Yugao looked at Naruto curiously. You have gone back to wearing your armor, she said. The blonde in front of her did not respond. Are you going somewhere? Yes, Naruto replied with a nod. Yugao nodded, and stepped closer to Naruto, wrapped her arms around him. I heard what happened to Danzo, she whispered into his ear. Although it was a bit extreme, I am still grateful for the save. Thank you, she stated before pushing the hair on his right cheek away to make a room. She planted a soft kiss before creating some distance between him and her. Naruto gave no physical reaction to it. I will see you tonight. Tonight. Yugao merely smiled and walked away from Naruto without another word. The blonde closed his door before going through a set of hand seals. He slammed his right hand to the floor before disappearing in a puff of smoke.